Start the stream. Testing, 1, 2. Okay, my mic is on and recording.
Yay.
All right, go.
Hello, and welcome to the weekly wrap with the USA Liberalists. Today, it's just going to be Cody and
1,
Jordan.
2. Okay, my mic is on and recording. Hello. Oh, sorry. I was just listening to the stream to make sure I was on. All right, we're good.
He's just enjoying the show.
Yes, I'm just.
So today we have a few different topics. We're going to talk about Trump and Ukraine because, of course, we are. We're also going to talk about a little bit about Brexit because Cody was frustrated with Brexit, so we wanted to talk about it.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk about Greta Thunberg, however you say it, the climate. I call her the climate change fairy, but you know, there's that. And then we have a couple other topics that we may or may not get to, depending on how things go.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with the big one, or do you want to start with Brexit?
Which one? I'm just like doing all the adjusting on stream. God damn it! Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. This is like the end of my night. I am still very tired.
This is the start of my day, so I'm ready to go.
This is a professional stream. All right.
Let's start with Brexit, and then we'll go Trump, and then I can spew all my venom out, and then we can go on to the climate change kids.
Okay. Brexit. EU leaders believe new extension is likely. No shit. Because the EU is never going to actually let them leave.
Well, yeah, so I don't know if everyone probably watched Sargon's video on this which was interesting. It was about the Britain's Supreme Court, which I didn't know they had one. That's not how their governmental system is set up, but I guess it's like a fairly recent organization, fairly recent establishment, or whatever you call it. Anyway.
Well, you would need some sort of, something like a Supreme Court to deter, because the problem with case law is that case law can contradict, so you need someone to, adjudicate on how all that works.
Yeah, I don't know all the technicalities or the minutia of British government, but the Supreme Court.
I consider myself something of an armchair expert.
Oh, well, what did they do before? Because this thing is from Tony Blair, I guess, according to Sargon.
I don't know, and I'll have you know I don't appreciate being attacked like that.
Okay. That was just so full of venom. Just so full.
No, I was fucking around. Sorry. All right, I have no clue.
Yeah, I don't know what they did before, but you know, Britain's a small country, and how much can they contradict themselves? You know,
quite a bit.
Yeah, probably.
They are impressively capable of not agreeing on things.
Well, I would think that if there wasn't, the judge would basically just interpret the law, as opposed to it does kind of feel like, even in the U.S., the Supreme Court in the past has gotten away from interpreting the law and more into producing the law, or I guess legislating the law to some extent, which is totally outside, in my opinion, is totally outside their purview. So it's outside their powers. They're not supposed to make laws.
Well, it's not even, they're not usually even doing that, because they've never fully stepped outside their purview, except for a couple of notable cases. But, the main thing that they end up doing, at least in America, and I won't speak for Britain, but I can speak for some of the issues we have in America, where judges will simply decide what they feel like the law is that day, and then if no one challenges it, it becomes like referenceable case law, effectively
Right.
effectively adjusting the laws unless someone directly challenges it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true because it feels like a weak version of legislation, which I would prefer it be no version of legislation, but
I mean, that's
if
just the
it's
nature
got to
of case
be
law.
have an element of it, yeah, I would prefer it to be weak because the legislation is 100% the purview of Congress, which is a whole other side topic that
Yeah.
we won't get to. We won't get to my feelings about that. Uh, but they essentially the British Supreme Court said that they can't prorogue Parliament essentially for that long, and so Parliament's still in session, and yeah, like
Well, as I
they're
understood it, it's supposed to be basically because we're talking about the Boris Johnson thing, right?
right.
Where he like tried to basically shut down Parliament for a few weeks. Effectively, as I understand what happened, um, the Parliament is supposed to have recesses in between one session of Parliament to the next, where they basically wait for the Queen's speech, where she dictates the effectively the focus of the coming year, like to the Parliament. Um, sort of lets them know what she wants them to look at, what she wants them to focus on. And yeah, I know that just sounds like it doesn't matter, but one thing that you also should keep in mind about British politics is the Queen technically retains full powers.
Yeah, she is the sovereign.
Yeah, she technically retains full power. Like all the laws have to go through her. She is technically still, she's not just queen in name only. She does have royal powers, but she doesn't usually end up needing to use them because no one ever really challenges it. So whatever. But yeah, she lets them know what's going on, and usually that process takes about a week. He was trying to make it take much longer. And as far as I can tell, there have been sort of conflicting reports on it, but it looks like he might have lied to her to try and convince her to do that. Like giving her a
Like
bet.
how so?
I didn't see any examples of exactly what he lied to her about, but I guess the claim being made right now is that he was telling her he wanted them to be shut down for a few weeks for a different reason. Because it's pretty obvious when you're following this whole thing. It's pretty obvious that basically he's trying to stop the Parliament from fucking with Brexit any further. He wants the hard
Right.
he just wants the no deal Brexit. We're just gonna crash out. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna do this, and we're just gonna start working on getting it back to normal as fast as possible. To me, I think
Well,
that's Boris's plan.
I think he just wants to Brexit. Like if he can get a deal, great. But if not, then he will no deal Brexit.
Well, I think at this
I don't
point,
think he's like, I want no deal. He's like, I think he'll say that publicly. I want no deal, but if he can work a good deal, like he would probably take it,
well, I
just
mean,
to get it done.
there is an argument for just tearing off the band-aid and just getting your country back on track as fast as possible. Because I mean, how much damage has just the Brexit negotiation itself had on Britain, especially economically? This has been 3 years now. Britain could have been most of the way to recover if Britain had just Brexited when it was supposed to.
Right.
Like
Well, like
all the pain could have already been over.
I'm like hard to believe that Boris Johnson lied to the Queen. Like I'm not saying that it's impossible that happened, but without knowing at least like what he lied to her about, or somebody saying like publicly, oh yeah, like he told her it was for this.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with Donald Trump. It's like, oh yeah, like he did this terrible thing, and he's like, oh, and like here's everything I said, and it's like, yeah, it's not as bad as you were making it out to be.
Yeah.
So I think secrecy cuts both ways. Like, yes, you want to have some sort of secrecy in your some of the dealings that you do, so that you can act more freely. But at the same time, it allows people to kind of make shit up about you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how realistic the lying part that he lied to the Queen or not, but I'm not saying it's impossible. But I just think that at this point, it just seems like Parliament is saying that we're staying in the EU without actually saying we're staying in the EU. They're like, well, if we just drag our feet long enough, maybe the people will forget. And I don't think the people will forget.
Well, I think the actual argument is honestly much more obvious because they've been making it for the past 2 years. It's been too long. The people have had time to think about it. We need to have the referendum again. Because I think what they're actually hoping is if they drag their feet long enough, eventually everyone's just going to be like, you know what, fuck it, fine, we'll just stay in. So when they do have the second referendum, you've already like beaten the people into, fuck it, I guess we're in the EU now. We're an EU member state. We'll just be the fucking Texas of the EU.
That does sound kind of cool.
Actually, Ireland would
So
probably
let
be
me
more like that than anything, but regardless.
Right. So let's pretend let's play a little like game. Let's pretend that we are British citizens
Oi, governor.
and we voted for Brexit. And then
I'm a big fan
they
of Brexit,
say,
I am, what?
They say, I got my Brexit license ready to go.
Oi, mate, you got your Brexit license?
That's more Australian.
It's gonna morph a little bit. I'm sorry about that.
They all sound the same, right? Racist. How would you feel like if there was
to who, cocktease?
If they called for a second referendum, which we can talk about referendums in a second. If they called for a second referendum, let's just say that, and then you were like, fine, let's just do this because you want Brexit. And then the election goes down and they vote to stay in. How do you feel at that point? Like, and then what do you do about it? Because I know I would feel like I would feel like definitely betrayed 100%. Because we voted to leave, and then a bunch of people threw a hissy fit and then said we need to have another vote, and then you're like, fine, we'll vote again because you're a baby. And then they vote.
I mean, they gotta
pass.
I mean, they've got to show back up again. Like if the Brexiteers want to make sure that this happens, they're gonna have to be ready for a long, protracted fight. I don't know if it's gonna go that way because it looks like I'm pretty sure Boris Johnson can at least keep his seat until fucking the end of October. I really hope so.
Yeah, me too.
Because if he can, even this article is mentioning the possibility that literally what he'll do is basically crash the UK out of the EU and then resign. Be like, all right, peace. I did what I needed to do. Fuck you guys.
He just has to wait long enough.
Yeah, he basically just has to just sit in that seat for a month. If he can do that,
well, and
he's good.
The Parliament also held up general elections.
Yeah.
Too. So they can't vote in a bunch of Brexiteer Parliament and then do what they want, do what the people want. Like referendums. Let's talk about referendums for a moment because I don't know. Does Texas have any sort of referendum vote?
I haven't heard about any, but I mean, if anything, that would normally be more like city level.
Yeah. In Oregon, we have something sort of like it. It's if our legislature passes a law, we can petition to have it put on the ballot and then the people get a vote on it.
Hmm.
So our legislative branch in Oregon passed a law that would give illegal immigrants driver's licenses.
Okay.
And so people petitioned and got it put on the ballot, and then the people of Oregon voted it down like 60-40.
Okay.
So they're pretty solidly against the idea. And so it didn't pass, but then recently they passed it as an emergency bill, and so now illegal aliens can get driver's licenses because fuck the people.
Yeah, of course they can.
Like, I know it's not the same as Brexit, but stuff like that makes me feel like these people want to rule over us as opposed to represent us.
Well, I mean, that's always the risk with any politician, right? They get too big for their britches, and they decide, I don't actually care about what my constituents think.
Well, yeah, it's like, I understand we're a republic and they're representatives, and we trust them. By voting for them, we're trusting them to do what is in our interests. But what do you do when they don't act in your interests? I mean, I didn't vote for any of these suckers, but they're still legally and lawfully elected and representatives, and so
you have to show up to vote. That's how this is supposed to work. Like, they get a few years. If it sucks, well, that's what the ballots are supposed to be for. But unfortunately, usually what happens is all the same idiots that showed up last time that don't pay attention, not really, vote for the same person, and it just stays exactly the same.
Because I'm not a huge fan of like straight referendums necessarily. Like the Brexit referendum, it was just like, we're thinking about leaving the EU, everybody vote on it. And then everybody voted on it and they voted to leave, and now the parliament's like, oh shit, like we don't want to leave. I don't know what their reasons for that are. They're citizens of Europe, whatever. They're in the Fourth Reich. It's all good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It would be incredibly frustrating to me if I were in Britain, if I were a Brit and I voted to leave and it's been 3 years, I wouldn't be wearing down to the point where I'm like, fine, let's just stay. I'd be wearing down to the point where I'd be like, fine, let's hang Parliament, essentially. It's like, we want to leave. You're supposed to represent us. You held a referendum to get essentially the pulse of the country, and the country said, leave.
Well, I mean, typically these things, in my experience, are more used as a way to justify a mandate. So it makes it when you're confident that you've got the majority opinion, you can hold these sorts of basically poll votes. Like, it's more of a head count than anything. To be able to say, like, look at all these people that agree with me. You have to listen to what I'm saying. The people want this. And that's typically more of like a manipulation tool than anything. It just sort of went the wrong way this time. I don't think they expected there to be as much anti-EU sentiment as there was.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess if it's just they never planned for it to go the other way, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, just like with the whole, like, Hillary Trump thing, like, the safe money was on no Brexit. Just like the safe money was on no Hillary. Like,
Man,
like,
I wish I would have taken that bet.
Yeah, if I could go back in time and place like $1,000 on Trump winning, holy crap.
Yeah, I'd be betting everybody.
Seriously. No, this year I think I'm going to put some money down on some of these things.
I'd vote Trump, but he looks like he's more likely to win this time than he was last time. But who
I
knows,
mean,
man?
more
Last time was
likely,
such a
sure.
freaking surprise.
Yeah, freaking more likely, sure. But fucking seeing as last time he was like supposed to lose by a 99% margin.
Right?
Like, yeah, of course,
It was
his odds look better this time. This time it's like a coin flip.
it was the best night of TV ever.
Oh my god! Oh, just watching all those people's fucking crestfallen
Yeah,
faces
just
as they realize what the
watching,
fuck is happening.
because I was fully prepared. I fully prepared myself to sit down and watch it till the end, and I figured, oh, this will probably end pretty soon. And they'll call it for Hillary, and I'll just, we'll go about our day because that's how it's gonna go, and
Right.
whatever. And then as the night got on later and later, you could just see, like, you could feel, I don't know, their soul leaving their body or something. I don't know how to describe it. It was just like delicious.
It was a beautiful night.
So good.
Dude, that was around the time that I was starting to really turn on the Young Turks too. So getting to
You
watch,
just see them all deflate.
yeah, to just
Like,
see all of them just be like, oh well, I mean, okay, so he needs Florida too. So if he gets Florida, fuck, he got Florida. Well, okay, hold on.
yeah.
He still needs Wisconsin. Yeah, okay, he needs Wisconsin as long as he doesn't fuck.
Right. It was just, he's not going to win. Oh, no, that's not a big deal. Like, oh, yeah, he can win that one. That's fine. And it's like, well,
Can he
okay,
though?
now he has a chance of winning. Well, he just needs this state. Well, now he needs this state. Oh shit!
He just needs all of the states that he keeps getting.
Like I said, if you ever need a laugh, like, just YouTube one of those
Oh
videos
man,
of
those
Trump winning the election.
there were so many fucking great videos that came out at that time that was just like compilations of people being just completely upset people breaking down because they're like, fuck. No.
Like the
No.
best were all the people that were at the Hillary victory party
Oh,
thing.
I didn't. Oh no, I didn't even see that. Oh.
They were like, well, it was like where she was supposed to give her speech, if she won.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I heard that she didn't even have like a defeat speech even prepared.
Yeah, she didn't have anything prepared, and somebody just came out and said, like, go home, basically.
Oh.
Like, they conceded, and like the people were like so excited at the beginning of the night and like cheering, and it was like a happy, like, festive atmosphere, and then they're waiting around. They're like, why hasn't she come out yet? And then as they watch, like, the states, the people essentially betray them.
That'll be a slice of
that's probably
humble
what
pie
they were
for
thinking.
you, and for
Yeah,
you, and for you.
they wheeled out the humble pie and just started handing out pieces. But you can just see them, like, they're like, like if you're at a party and then it starts to get late in the evening and you're like, everyone starts to get tired and people are just sitting down, and then people start getting quiet and sleepy. But then imagine, like, the people start crying after that.
Most of these, it kind of looked like the first part of that, and then someone just walks in the living room, takes a giant crap on the coffee table, and then just walks out. That was sort of like the emotional range I was getting from these people. It went from like happy to like, okay, I mean, Trump took a couple of states, but it's still probably fine, to what the fuck happened.
To hatred.
Yeah, it was really funny.
I honestly feel like they felt betrayed. Like, that's the sense that I got from them.
By who? They know that that most of the country hates their asses.
By the American people.
They know that the American people hate their asses.
Or rather by the Electoral College or the Russians or Everybody.
Oh yeah,
Everybody betrayed
now they're
him.
attacking the Electoral College because apparently they don't quite conceptualize the idea of state sovereignty.
Well, their thing is that, well, the Electoral College only favors one party. It's like, well, because the Democrats play the game like it's a democracy and the Republicans play the game like it's a republic, and guess what? It's a fucking republic. So you just got to play the game that you're playing by the
Oh my
rules.
god, the whole like Electoral College thing was such sour grapes. Like I don't remember any of them fucking complaining that Obama swept the Electoral College. I
Well,
don't
yeah,
remember,
it's
I don't remember any of these bitches complaining when they thought Hillary had a chance. When they thought Hillary was winning, I don't remember any of them being like, "Well, I mean, the Electoral College, it's going to be a big problem come 2016." Shut the fuck up. You're only complaining now because you lost.
All the institutions are great when they
Do what you want.
Are under their thumb.
Yeah.
Which I was listening to Hillsdale College.
Okay.
I was listening to one of their online courses about how Congress has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the major changes was during the progressive era, I guess.
Okay.
And one of the things that there's a book I need to read. It's like something like, I forget what it's called, but it's essentially like the progressive handbook, more or less, like how a progressive government should work.
Okay.
And there's like 3 things that you need in order to like hold office. And one of the things, I forget the other 2, but one of the things is that you have to be a progressive or else the system doesn't work.
Now, when we say progressive, are we talking about modern progressives, like the postmodernist type, or are we just talking about someone that's focused on progress?
Someone that's bought into the ideology.
Okay, so modern American progressivism. All right.
Well, kind of. I'd have to. I'm gonna find that book. Damn it.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Because I'm not quite sure we're talking. Because when you're talking about the idea of, because when you say progressive, you're usually talking about a set of ideological precepts.
Like a social justice warrior, right? That's typically
That's
what
one
I
aspect of it.
mean when I think of progressive, something like that. But when I
Progressives
think of
aren't
progressive, I
necessarily
think like
SJWs, but
super far left. But they're like the Woodrow Wilson, I think, type, where they see the power of government as something that can be used for great good.
Well, yeah, the basis of progressivism isn't necessarily SJW or any of that. The basis of progressivism fundamentally is about progress. Like the average progressive is trying to accomplish is progress towards something. And now it's like been taken over by like a kind of a slew of ideologies, really, that have all been mishmashed into what we think of as a modern progressive. But really, anyone that is looking at the status quo and saying this needs to get changed around so that we can make significant progress is a progressive. In fact, I'd say most left wing people probably would be progressives.
Well, if I think if that's your point of view, then I think everybody is progressive in some aspect. But the book is Politics and Administration by Goodnow.
Well, I mean, to be clear, I view progressive and conservative as basically 2 sides of the same coin. It's not really a question of if, it's a question of how much, to me.
Well, like in the video, they talk about like progressives believe, like the progressives that are using this book, like the philosophy that they're talking about is that the American political system is inadequate, and it needed updated to meet the needs of the modern society.
That does sound
So
like a progressive, yes.
they rejected the political philosophy of the founding to introduce their new political philosophy, which is the politics and administration. And so they only see that there's 2 functions of government instead of 3, and they believe that it's just like expression of the will of the community, which is politics, and then there's administration, which is the execution of that will. That's it. And this is where we see like.
Well, that's highly simplistic, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's like a watered down explanation of it, but.
Well, I mean, if that's the only 2 things they're like expressing, then they're going to run into a major problem very quickly, in the form of, okay, if the way that the government works is basically to collect the collective opinion and then execute it, how do you deal with it when it's contentious? Like, it's one thing to say murder is bad. Like, okay, fine, murder bad. How about whether or not I get to keep my guns?
Well, it's like it'd probably be something more like killing is bad, but what if somebody's trying to kill you? Can you kill them?
Not even that. What I'm saying is, like, one of the reasons that we have municipal laws, city laws, state laws, county ordinances, and all this stuff, like, it's a pretty complex system. Like, the reason for that is so that the community gets to be heard. It's just my opinion about how I like to live my life doesn't necessarily impact how someone that lives in a different city wants to live their life. Like, it's supposed to be 2 different areas because I live here and they live there, right?
Right.
Like, that's why it's not just one giant collective making decisions and then enforcing it, like literally the tyranny of the majority, like the end game fucking the end game of, like, one man, one vote taken to its absolute extreme in philosophy form. It's fucking stupid, man. You can't just tell half the country that they're not allowed to do something at all under any circumstances, even if they want to keep it contained to their community, and it's not violating some fundamental human right. Like, okay, murdering and raping kids, got it. Not allowed to do that. Fine, that's fair. But, like, most other things, maybe leave people alone, man.
With the way these progressives, which is the term we're going to use because I don't have a better one right now, they divide the legislative power across both politics and administration. So the job of elected offices would be to express the will of the community in broad terms and objectives.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, like the Clean Air Act would be something like that, where they just say, well, we want clean air. It's like, okay, cool. They passed the Clean Air Act. Then it goes to the...
knowing our country, the Clean Air Act would somehow make the air dirtier.
Probably. Then it goes to the executive branch to execute that will, right? And so it goes to like the EPA, and they enact rules and regulations. But for the way the Hillsdale College professors explained it is that there's a separation of powers.
I haven't heard it yet.
Progressives are critical of separation of powers because they believe it's inefficient. So they want to centralize the powers.
Oh yeah, that's gonna go great.
Well, there was a quote here.
Wait, didn't I just hear earlier that the fucking one of the prerequisites of a progressive government is that the leader has to be a progressive? Are we serious?
Yeah,
are we seriously going back to we need a philosopher king?
Yeah, I got a lot of that. Basically, I have not read Plato's Republic, but essentially it's Plato's Republic.
Fucking, oh yes, if only we had the Philosopher King back. If only King Arthur would take over America, everything would be fine. It's like,
well, they want
it's like, yeah, no
okay,
shit, but damn.
the way they see it as working is that they want they want the people who are making the rules.
Okay.
So like, what would you call those people? The regulatory agencies, which is what we have now.
We'll just call them legislators.
The bureaucrats.
Yeah.
They want those people to be experts, and then they want those experts to be independent from the political process. So they want them to not have to worry about being elected, so that they, in their expertise, can make the best decisions.
Good lord, this is stupid. Like, did they not understand the problems with an appointed technocracy? Seriously?
No. I mean, it's the third video in the series on Congress from Hillsdale College.
God,
It's
this
free
sounds
online.
mind-numbing.
I would recommend that everybody watch it because it is like,
Okay, for anyone that doesn't understand why an appointed technocracy would fall apart like immediately. The problem with appointments in the first place, right? The problem with appointments in the first place is that it's too easy for someone to just fucking appoint their friends. Okay, like,
well,
in theory, if it's all scientists running the fucking science section of the science technocracy, that could mostly work, except for the fact that, like, someone needs to be able to communicate these things. Typically, the idea guy and the decision-making guy probably shouldn't be the same guy. Just because the idea guy has a very focused view of the world, and the decision-making guy has a very broad view. It's more useful to take the idea guy to come up with the ideas and then give it to the decision guy, who is going to be able to see how it's going to affect other things. This is another reason technocracies don't work, because their decision-making skills are usually shit. But even if they weren't shit, you still have to come back to the problem of nepotism and the fact that the technocracy itself is going to fall apart. So you end up with the decision-making guy being shitty at his job and giving shitty advice to the decision-making guy, who apparently is going to be a philosopher king in this fucking scenario. This is going to fall apart so fucking fast.
well, this is like, if you watch the video, it feels like this is where we're at now, because
Oh, good.
so there's I forget, I didn't write it down clearly in my notes, but there's like three things that a person, like somebody, needs in order to be a bureaucrat, essentially. What is it?
Let me guess, to be pure of
one,
heart.
One, they have to be experts. Two, they have to be independent from the partisan political process. So they want the policymakers out of the electoral process.
Mm-hmm.
Get them out from under the control of elected officials, so that the people, public opinion, and the people's elected representatives don't get in the way of the application of expertise to solve these social problems. So
How
they
dare
want...
the people voice their opinions?
No, the people can voice their opinions still.
Just not through their legislators.
No, through their legislators, but these experts will tell... These experts are supposed to just do what's best, because they're experts. They know what's best.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're the experts that are going to tell us what's good for us.
Well, they're going to use their expertise to implement the will of the people the best way. Does that make sense?
This sounds horrible.
To you and me, this sounds horrible, but to progressives, this is like utopia.
God, this is the kind of shit that I would have come up with when I was like 20.
So, well, I really want to read that book, but I have to find it first. I can probably find it pretty quickly, but anyway. So they expect that the end result of this, all this stuff, is a greater implementation of democracy.
Okay.
And so, the people will, through their elected representatives, will be able to express their goals. Clean Air Act.
Okay.
And it's less likely to be subverted because the people implementing them are going to have no interest except serving the public interest is their idea, which to me is an insane idea. So the third characteristic,
Because that sounds like fucking government workers to me. Doesn't that sound like
right?
government workers to you? You just show up in the office and everyone's all chipper and be like, "I'm serving the American people today."
Well, so where I work, I've been recently made the environmental compliance coordinator,
Okay.
and so I had to go to the Department of Environmental Quality in Oregon and like take a class. It was free. It was a free class on like how to handle hazardous waste and all that good stuff. And there were two guys teaching the class, and they totally had this mindset like, we're here to help everybody. Like, we're not here to hurt you, but we're also going to write you up and give you gigantic ass fines if you don't do what we say. It's like, that's like, no, you're not a benevolent. I mean, it was just a feeling I had, but it kind of like, I believe them that they wanted to help, that they cared about environmental quality. But I also felt that they felt like they were, I don't know, our superiors in some way. I just got that feeling. They didn't say it or anything. It was just, and maybe I'm the only one.
No, that's a pretty normal attitude for people to take when they know that they can like beat you over the head with something, and there's really nothing you can do about it.
Right, and I'm not saying they were bad people, because they seemed like, perfectly fine people, but it just seemed like they felt like they were these experts, these bureaucratic experts, and they knew better, and that they were deigning to lower themselves to talk to us little people and help us figure it out. And if we don't, then they're going to hit us with fines and it's kind of what it felt like. I mean, I'm not going to lie. But the third characteristic of a bureaucrat is they must be a zealous progressive, essentially.
Oh, so I was actually kidding earlier when I was talking about them being pure of heart. I wasn't very far off.
No, the note I took, they said if a non-progressive got in charge, they would use power to circumvent the will of the people. So if you watch this, like, it just kind of, to me, it opens your eyes to how things are going, because Donald Trump is like the furthest thing from a progressive in this mindset that you could get.
Oh yeah, he is.
And so that's why they hate him so much, because he's not a zealous progressive. And so they believe, since he's not a progressive, that he's trying to circumvent the will of the people.
Oh, good Lord.
I also wrote, seems like the progressives want an ideological test for administrative positions.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course they do. They've been telling us it basically as much for how long? Like, they've basically been saying it. We won't accept anyone that isn't pre-approved. We don't care what the elections say. We're telling you beforehand who we want, and if you don't like it, you can suck a fat dick.
So, I mean, I keep going on. I could keep going on about this for a long. This is
we should probably
subject that
we should probably
I'm
move off.
But yeah, let's go back to the news. We can.
Well, I
can always do my own episode on this if I really want to.
Right. I think we've talked about Brexit enough. I just said exit. We've talked about Brexit enough.
Brexit this conversation.
Oh my God.
To something else, and into this.
How about Wall Street?
You want to talk about the Democrat donors?
Sure.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, Wall Street Democratic donors warned the party, "We'll sit out or back Trump if you nominate Elizabeth Warren." Holy crap.
Yeah, I saw this. It didn't get a lot of play, but
that's funny.
I thought it was pretty hilarious. I don't know how serious it is. I imagine pretty serious.
For these guys, if they're normally Democratic donors, that's a pretty serious threat, actually. So, all right, well, that's the top two contenders basically knocked out of the race, because I'm sorry, I don't give a shit what the polls say. I really don't think that Biden would actually win if he got into it. By the way, this is the worst picture of Elizabeth Warren I've ever seen. That face. Holy crap, guys. Anyway, talking about crazy eyes. Yeah, because Biden, I honestly don't think he would win. I think he would get seriously stomped. Like, because these polls are always like acting like the election's tomorrow, and it's not. So yeah, I don't think Biden
Right.
would actually survive. Warren, maybe, but not if all of her fucking donors go to, like, if it's not even just losing donors. If her donors go to Trump, that's every dollar that she lost is now $2 lost because like now it's going into his pocket instead.
Right. So like this is huge. This is like a huge deal. I feel like because you see all the polls and it's like all the Democratic candidates are polling way higher than Trump. And it's like, well, yeah, because right now there's nobody to focus on. It's like, well, if you poll Democrats, they'll say, yeah, a Democrat would be better than Trump. Of course they're going to say that. But once you get the candidate and the people like start listening to what they're saying, it's like, well, I don't want a socialist, so maybe I just won't vote.
Yeah,
They're
here's the
not gonna vote
quote.
for Trump. They're just not gonna vote.
Maybe here's the quote. You're in a box because you're a Democrat and you're thinking, I want to help the party, but she's going to hurt me, so I'm going to help President Trump. Said a
Yep.
senior private equity executive. That's amazing. Holy crap. How like is this actually like a big thing or is this just like one or two guys?
Um, I don't know how many people this is. Let's see.
And to be fair, maybe Warren doesn't particularly care because it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like she's trying to basically replicate Feel the Burn in pretty much every, like,
Yeah.
she's literally stealing Bernie's entire campaign from the
She's like,
last.
I'm the more intersectional Bernie.
Oh, good lord. Why? Because she's Native American and a woman?
Because she's a woman.
What? What are you talking
I
about?
I think
Pocahontas is clearly Native American.
I think the people that even the people that were defending her on being Native American, like, no, she's not fucking Native American.
Okay, everybody knows she's not fucking Native American.
Well, it says in
Oh,
here that the DNC has struggled to keep up with fundraising, so they finished August bringing in $7.9 million, and they have $7.2 million in debt.
oh,
That
that's
was
not
that
good.
was something Ben Shapiro talked about like a year or two ago. Is that the DN essentially after the Obama administration, the DNC had a lot of trouble fundraising. Like they weren't able to bring in that much money. And so Hillary Clinton, you know, was able essentially to save their asses. So that's how she got the nomination because she had all the money.
Well, apparently her real major talent in the DNC was incredible fundraising skills. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's impressive in its own right, but it sounds like they might need Hillary to work on the back lines this time because somebody needs to bring in some
Well,
cash because it's not Warren.
by comparison, in August, the RNC raised just over $23 million and has $53 million on hand, according to this
Holy
article. So
crap.
if it comes down to who can spend more money, it looks like the Republicans
Yeah, if
can
that's,
bankroll that shit.
I mean, yeah, depending on how effectively they can use that cash, like they might have just won right there because the DNC only has a year to finish the race. Like the race is going to be ending around this time next year. So yeah, holy crap! All right, and don't get me wrong, it looks like Warren's pulling in some cash of her own, but didn't I hear? I read somewhere in here that Trump has like raised 100 million by himself.
uh, Probably.
I'm trying to see where I saw that, but
Yeah, Trump campaign and Republican National Committee have raised over $100
Yep,
million
here it is.
in the second quarter. I like.
This was that the 23 million was just in August.
Yeah, that was 1 month.
And from what I'm reading on the DNC side, so they've got 0.7 million to the RNCs for August, 76 million. The RNC has them beat in August, but 100-fold.
Right? Go Republicans.
What the fuck? That's not even fair.
Yeah, they don't say. I didn't see anywhere where they said.
How did the Democrats win anything? What the fuck is this?
I don't see where they say how many or who, or if it just says several high-dollar Democratic donors and fundraisers in the business community in recent weeks have decided that if Elizabeth Warren is the nominee, that they're essentially not going to.
Yeah, Warren is. It looks like she's leaning into it too. Wall Street executives are fearful of an Elizabeth Warren presidency. I'm Elizabeth Warren, and I approve this message. Oh, good lord! I swear to God,
there is that contingent, where it's like big money bad.
Like, I get it, but like, look, you shouldn't be happy that the fucking rich people in the country are scared of. It's one thing for them to be like, okay, I think my taxes are probably going to go up. That's one thing. If they're like scared of you coming in, that you're setting up a situation where you're possibly going to crash the economy just by existing.
Well, yeah, it's like the thing that the Bernie Sanders and the Elizabeth Warren types don't understand is that these quote unquote wealthy Wall Street people, they're the ones that are like, they have the businesses. They're the capitalists, I guess. So that's probably why they hate them.
Well, but that and the retirees.
They're the ones. Well, yeah, that too. But they have what everyone fondly refers to as FU money.
Yeah.
And even like, so it doesn't matter, like, you come down super hard on these people, they're just going to be like, all right, we're going to India or China or...
Fuck that, they'll just hang out in the Bahamas for the next 4 years.
Ireland, who knows?
Like, in their situation, I would literally just go to Jamaica or the Bahamas or fucking... Why not Cuba for a little bit? Fuck it. The Cubans aren't going to complain about a huge influx of American money.
Well, they hate capitalists, so...
Oh, yeah, sure they do. That's why Havana fucking exists.
Well, that's why everybody drives cars from the 60s.
Well, I mean, no, all I'm saying is, like, Cuba has, like, really nice tourist areas for a reason. It's not where they do sell things. It's not fucking... Cuba is not just living on hopes and dreams and farmland. Like, the Cuban government would love if all of our fucking Wall Street people put all their money in Cuba for the next few years. They would fucking adore that.
Yeah, I think the Wall Street people would probably find somewhere better, though. Cuba's nice and all, but fucking hurricanes, dude. And then communists.
Yeah, well.
I mean, maybe they'll just go to Hong Kong and, like, liberate it. So it'd actually be a good idea. I mean, for Hong Kong.
I mean, hey, man, maybe... I mean, at the end of the day, hey, Elizabeth Warren, I mean, that could be your message. Here's your complete political message. I'm gonna freak out our rich people so much that I'm gonna tell them that if you go to Hong Kong and use your your huge fat stacks to free Hong Kong, I won't fuck with you anymore because we're gonna fucking annex Hong Kong as the 51st state, baby.
I'm down.
That'd be cool, actually. I don't think that's going to happen, and that sounds like an extremely poorly thought out plan. Please don't actually do that, Warren.
6D chess. Well, yeah, she is listening.
She is. That's the third person listening. That's Elizabeth Warren. Hi, Elizabeth Warren.
All the candidates listen to this show because they need to stay informed.
That's right. I mean, how are they supposed to stay informed without us? Come on.
That's right. We're that important.
We are that. Hey, I heard doubt in your voice. How dare you?
It's called humility.
How dare you?
Doubt. I know. How dare I? Humility is a sin.
Humility is a sin.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's. I wish I knew which of these donors, but reading through this article, there's like big bank executives, hedge fund managers, some other people like Wall Street executives that are just, they either will sit it out or they'll donate to Trump. So
Yeah.
there's not much more here. And this kind of leads into the whole Ukraine thing too, because that is, if that's benefiting anybody, it's benefiting Warren.
Yeah. Yeah, mostly because it just happens to not hit her, thankfully. I think this is an interesting quote here at the bottom. I think if she can show that the tax code of 2017 was basically nonsense and only helped corporations, Wall Street would not like the people thinking that. Huh. Wait, is that an executive trying to admit that the tax code was only for corporations? I mean, I actually don't even agree with that. Like, there were other people that were benefited. That's weird.
Well, yeah, like they don't want the, I don't know, like.
I understand they don't want people
says
just thinking that, but like.
Right. Well, I don't want people thinking that because it's false, not because it's true. And
Well, yeah, I guess maybe it's just
truth.
Maybe it's just the wording, because the wording makes it sound like, oh god, if she lets everybody know, we're fucked.
This is just 6D chess because they want to show ahead of the election that Trump's tax cuts were really just for Wall Street. Look at this quote from this anonymous executive.
Yeah, exactly. The anonymous part.
This is 5D chess.
Oh god, the fucking anonymous. In fact, if we want, since we're talking about anonymous, and this is more of like a minor story, why don't we move on to Trump impeachment?
Yeah, Trump impeachment 2020.
Fucking anonymous sources from an anonymous source in the first place, whose sources, his anonymous sources, are also anonymous. Thank God we can't prove anything that might actually make this easy to deal with.
So this is, impeachment finale. This is the season ender episode of impeachment.
I swear to God.
Here. Like, we're watching a reality TV show, essentially.
Someone,
that's what
please,
politics have become.
Just kill me and get this over with. Holy crap. This is such a painful thing to watch. For them to scrape for any excuse that they can possibly figure out how to justify impeachment.
Well, yeah. So, if for people who don't know, Trump called, or the Ukraine called Trump, or Trump called the Ukraine?
I think he called them.
One of the two. He called them. Okay. Yeah, he called to congratulate the new, I don't know, leader, whatever he is, Emperor of Ukraine.
The Emperor of Ukraine. I feel like that title is a little bit more grandiose than it deserves to be.
All right, the Lord of Ukraine. I don't know what they are. What they have? Prime Minister, probably something.
The
like
Viscount of Ukraine.
Yeah, the Impaler.
The Impaler of Ukraine.
I think it's Prime Minister.
What is he just like? Did he just fucking put a hole in the ground and fuck it? Like, what is he impaling?
Like Vlad the Impaler, man.
The Impaler's not a title.
It should be.
That was just a notation that he's a douche.
That would be like the coolest title. Like, you don't want to fuck with that country's leader. He's the Impaler. Come on. It's like, give him missiles. So he can fight our enemies for us.
Give him missiles.
Anyway, Trump called him to congratulate him. But also on the call, they talked about Biden and his son Hunter Biden dealings with Burisma, which is like a oil or energy company or something like that. And they also talked about aid. Do you have the transcript?
Yeah, for some
Right up
reason,
there.
like my browser closed, I had to reopen it. That was weird. All right.
But they also talked about military aid that Trump was kind of withholding from Ukraine,
Okay.
which kind of seems, I don't know. Trump does a lot of stuff like this where it just depends on how you want to read into it. So it's like, it's whatever your opinion is of Trump, you're going to read it one way or the other. And so if you hate Trump, if you're looking for a reason to impeach, you're going to read it like, see, look, he withheld aid from Ukraine ahead of this phone call so that he could use that as leverage to get dirt on his political enemies.
Dude, I gotta admit, like, this entire story just. I hate that everyone's reporting it like we know anything. Like, none of. Like, the only thing that we have that's even remotely solid is the transcript, which. I mean, okay, when the left is calling it like a fake transcript, I mean, maybe? But you
No,
have no proof
come
of that.
on.
Like, there's no proof of that. So until I see any proof that this transcript is faked, I'm going to treat it as at least like 80% true. Okay? Like, and then we have the complaint, which admitted that it was an anonymous source who apparently was CIA, according to someone that I guess knows who the source is.
Some anonymous source told us who the anonymous source was. Yeah,
Yeah, I
man.
guess so.
Fuck these anonymous sources, man. I'm tired of them. Fuck
Seriously.
these guys.
So
Have some balls.
we have an anonymous CIA guy who has information that he got from anonymous people who apparently either saw the thing themselves or heard a rumor from another anonymous person. So now we're looking at like third-hand anonymous reporting. Oh, and by the way, he's got like some CNBC reports. Fucking
Right.
wow.
I watched the news,
Why do
and
I
this is
give a
what I
shit?
found.
Jesus. Seriously, like, wow, I can watch CNBC and find out that Trump is betraying the country? Well, like, dude,
Well, this is
how is this a fucking whistleblow? Your sources are all fucking secondhand. You didn't see shit yourself. And most of your goddamn actual sourcing is from news.
right. This is information laundering to me. Does that make sense?
You know, I
Like,
get it.
you see this in academia too, where they publish stuff without evidence and then cite it, and then therefore now it becomes valid.
Yep.
It's the same thing. Like,
Well, journalism does that all the time.
yeah, like, where do you think they learned how to do that? In college.
I mean, to be fair, it's not as bad in the in academia because you got to remember most of academia is STEM, really. Then you have all the other
Right.
stuff where it's like philosophy, and if they're like, you can't really information launder philosophy. It's because philosophy is literally just opinions.
Yeah.
So it comes down to when you get to some of the soft sciences, like the social sciences, that's where that becomes a problem. But
Right. Once they start with the end
right,
and then work backwards to justify it.
I've actually
And
had
it's
to
not
explain this
right.
to some people, like why it's a bad thing to fucking. And this was in college, where I had to explain to them why working your conclusion backwards didn't make sense, and it didn't. Like I had to sit there and actually explain it to them. It's like, yes, you can't just start from your opinion and then fucking work the information around it to make it fit. That's fucking stupid.
Right, because then you can essentially justify whatever you want
Yeah, you
to some
literally.
extent.
I mean, to a pretty decent extent. You'd be amazed what people can convince themselves of.
Well, and then you throw out all the problem. Like, if you do that, then you got to include evidence that contradicts your hypothesis.
Yep.
Because if you're just throwing out all that stuff to confirm the conclusion you already want, like having a hypothesis is fine, but then you have to test the hypothesis, not backfill information in order to bolster the hypothesis. You got to test it. Like, you got to try to disprove your hypothesis as hard as you can. And if you can't, then you can say that it's true, or that, I guess the closest thing to truth that fallible human beings can get is that for now, this is what we perceive to be true.
I don't know if we should even bother pretending that the social sciences give a shit about the scientific method. But
yeah, as somebody who has an arts degree, someone who got a degree, what is it? What are those called? They're not. It's not social sciences. It's not the arts. What do you call it?
Fine arts.
Anyway, no. There's a term for it, like English and. Damn, I'm blank. I need more coffee.
Toilet paper?
No, I don't need any toilet paper, man. I'm good.
Well, I think you got some.
It's in my head. But with this, getting back to this Trump story, essentially the Democrats are using this as a trigger for impeachment. Nancy Pelosi's come out and basically said, like, we're moving forward with this because she can't hold back the radicals in her party any longer.
Dude, I can't wait. I am so fucking ready for them to, like, actually do this.
Bags of popcorn ready to go.
Dude, if this turns out to be anything less than a goddamn bombshell gotcha, they're so fucked. Because, literally, if they're trying to impeach him over, like, well, he said, a thing in the call that he didn't disclose. He said that he was going to get a chicken sandwich, but then, like, he didn't put it in the transcript, so it's a fake transcript. He should have disclosed the chicken sandwich. Impeachment.
But he got Chick-fil-A. Dun, dun, dun.
No. Like, I'm just saying, if it turns out to be a goddamn complete nothing burger again, and this time they tried to use it to justify impeachment, like, holy crap. Because I think a lot of people, pretty fairly, in my opinion, look at the two sides of politics and say, it's like, yeah, they're treating Trump like shit, but to be fair, the Republicans treated Obama like shit, and before that, the Democrats treated Bush like shit. So, like, it's just sort of the way it goes, But, like,
right, that's politics.
Yeah, like, that's just kind of the way it goes. But fucking, this is getting to a point where it's silly.
Well, it's like I saw a headline that, to me, kind of sums this up. It's like, it said, "How long can the left survive on a diet of nothing burgers?"
Where was this?
And I'm like, I don't know. I was on Facebook late last night, and I just laughed really hard at it, and then I said, it's time for bed. Because it was more funny than I actually thought it was. But I don't know who wrote it. I mean, I guess we could probably Google it and find out.
I am finding that article because that sounds amazing.
But it basically, it gets to the heart where... So in my personal life, the parallel that I draw in my personal life is, I wake up at 5 a.m, but my dogs probably wake up around 4:30, but they know, don't move. Like, we don't get up and start running around until the alarm goes off, or if the human starts moving around, then they wake up. And so for me, it's like, I have to if I wake up at like 4:30 and I want to go back to sleep for another 30 minutes, I have to lay perfectly still. And I feel like if Trump is just perfectly still, they're just all watching and wait. Like, the media is like my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
They're all just watching and waiting. And, like, if he shifts slightly, then all my dogs jump up out of bed, start running around, like, barking at each other, and, like, they think it's breakfast time. It's meal time. And that's the media with Trump, is it's like they're just waiting for him to, anytime he, like, if he would yawn, they'd be like, Yawns are white supremacy. Like, it's the new white supremacist gesture is yawning because
I kind of want to see if there's been an article ever written about yawning being white supremacy.
Welcome to the Google segment of the episode. This is where we Google articles that we're interested in. Did you ever find the Nothing Burger one?
I did. It is quite nice. The morning briefing from PJ Media, written by Steven Cruiser. How long can the Dems live on a diet of nothing burgers? Right. I love the first image. It's like, save us, impeach. It's got like a poop Trump face with a little toupee, and just some chick next to it that says, "I brought Pepsi though." Is she trying to give the left a Pepsi? Oh, we got some okay signers in the back.
It's okay, man. It's all okay.
It's like behind some chick, so it looks like she's got 4 arms. This image is amazing.
So the Democrats have moved forward with the impeachment inquiry, and according to the Times,
I think you mean the impeachment palooza?
Right. Impeachment inquiry 2020, the finale. Season finale. Will Trump survive? Will the Democrats get their revenge?
Probably not. But find out next time.
Get a rose? Who's getting a rose? Find out next time. Right.
Dude, it actually does kind of feel like Saturday morning cartoons. Because, like, every single week, there's some new fucking drama.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much reality TV you watch, but this is reality TV, man. That's what this is.
Dude, I can't even be mad at this shit anymore. It's gotten to a point of ridiculousness that, seriously, if someone can't look at this and be like, this is dumb, I don't know what to tell them.
Right. I'm like, just laugh at it. I posted, I don't know if we talked about this last episode or not, but I posted like a Babylon Bee article.
Okay.
And my brother essentially, like, it was universities give trigger warning to history students that, you know, socialism essentially like they gave a trigger warning before they taught about the history of socialism.
Okay.
Because of all the, you know, genociding and all that stuff.
Starvation and okay.
Right, and it was typical Babylon. It was a Babylon Bee article, so It was way more hilarious than I could make it. And my brother, like, commented on it. Yeah, but morons like you believe this stuff, and like went on like a tirade about it. I'm like, dude, it's a satire article. Like, it's supposed to be funny. And then he came back with, oh yeah, it's just a joke, bro. And I'm like,
it is just a joke.
It is, yeah. It is just a joke.
Never take your brother to a Dave Chappelle show. Holy shit.
Well, he does. Well, he's moving to Seattle, so
of course he is.
Maybe he'll. Yeah. Anyway, it was a funny, but that's kind of like how these people on the left are. It's like the people on the right are in the middle, except for maybe the far right. They're looking at all this stuff and being like, it's crazy, it's insane, like,
this is dumb.
All you can do about it is laugh because it's so dumb, right? The people on the left and the people on the far right are like the ones who are spurging out about it, and the people in like the center right and the center are just like, and probably some of the people on the center left, like Tim Pool and stuff, but they're just laughing about it. It's like, come on, like, have a sense of humor. Like, some of this shit is so crazy, it's funny. Like, it rises to the level of parody. When parody starts predicting the future, you just have to laugh.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I like, even with your brother, I can sort of see where he's coming from, because I could totally see that sort of shit actually happening in the future. Because, I mean, hey, man, we're not, like, we didn't build this fucking triggered world. We're just living in it. And,
right.
And like, once that wheel turns, I mean, yeah, eventually it's going to be socialism on the other end of the criticism, and whether or not trigger warnings have gone with it, I don't know. We'll find out. It's not actually that far fetched to imagine a world where there's going to be a history class that's giving out trigger warnings for talking about Mao Zedong.
Yeah, it's we didn't want these trigger warnings. World history professor
We
opens
tried to
class
tell them.
with trigger warning for socialist students.
Hey man,
I found it. I found it.
I
All
didn't.
right.
I didn't build this world.
We've reached the segment where I read stuff off my Facebook.
Excuse me. I think you mean the best segment.
The best segment. Yeah, he said, "It's just a joke, bro," when it's clearly not just a joke.
Which part isn't a joke?
This is what you actually believe. You think the world you think that world history somehow condemns socialist ideas. And I said, "No. World
What?
history tells the story of humanity. From my view, socialist ideas condemn themselves and have proven not to work. Social programs under a free market can work at times, but you need the free market and property in order to make those social programs function properly." And he just said, "No, you don't." That was
Dude,
it.
what? Even Marx knows that. Like that
Well, like,
was one of the prime. No, that was one of like the primary aspects of Marx's philosophy. It's like, okay, we can't just form shit out of nothing. Okay, so we need a strong capitalist state to start with to build the socialist state out of. That's the most important. That's literally the most important part. Socialism is completely impossible without capitalism.
yeah,
It's just that's the nature of it. It doesn't work.
right. Like you can have social programs, like that's fine, and I'm fine with like a society getting together and deciding on something. I don't particularly call that socialism because I think that normalizes the word socialism. Like I don't consider police officers to be a socialist institution. I just consider it to be an institution of civilized society. Even though,
it's just a institution where we centralized all the cash and for the community.
right, I don't see any like,
It's a social program.
yeah, it's a social program, but I don't see it as socialism.
I mean, okay, but now we're just nitpicking because like the definition, like the socialism, it's not socialism until it is. The only difference between socialism and not socialism, if we're going on a loose definition, is when it starts becoming a problem. Like you can't just have it so that your definition of socialism is it's only socialism when it's gone too far.
No, because I see like what is it, the Social Security as like a socialist sort of policy, but I don't think like I that's just my distinction is that I don't because
I would
every
actually,
society in history has had some sort of like police force.
right.
It doesn't mean that it because you can have like I guess you could have a private police force, I guess, but
There have technically been countries that have done private policing. Italy did that for a long time through actually a pretty good section of the Renaissance. Most city states were expected to fund their own defense, and that was largely done through mercenary groups.
yeah, but I mean I don't see that's just my distinction. We can talk about that later, I guess.
Sure. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
I
so to me, like, if it's a social program, I'm not saying you're a socialist country if you've got a police force, but I am saying
right.
if you're funding it socially, well, that would be a
Well,
socialist policy.
when I talk to socialists, they want to essentially contribute all positives to socialism. And so I guess that's where my resistance comes from is they're like, They're like, well, I oppose socialism. And they're like, oh, you hate police and you hate roads and you hate government, essentially.
Well, I mean, just because they're socialists and they want to take it too far doesn't mean everything that they say is wrong. I mean, look, yes, technically speaking,
Oh, yes, it does.
technically speaking, like the construction of roads, could, especially if we're talking on a federal level, because on a state level it's a little bit different. But like, if we're talking about federal projects, pretty much any federal project probably should be referred to as a socialist project. It's where the centralized government, the highest form of the centralized government, taking in all the cash and redistributing it as a central command. It's taken the representation of the means of production, because now the means of production, like before money was like the end all be all, before it was a completely transferable commodity. Because nowadays cash can literally become anything. Your cash can turn into bread. Your cash can get you cars. Your cash can get you houses. Your cash can get you sex, right? Like cash can turn into anything. But it wasn't always the case. Like one of the major points about communism specifically, like as an outpouring of socialism, was the idea of seizing control of the means of production. But we also don't really live in a particularly productive country. Like a huge part of Americans' productivity is actually spending. The means of production in this country is cash. If you control the cash, you do have the means of production. That is the means of production.
Well, the means of production is capital, so that's capitalism.
Sure.
No, I think my contention is more with. Oh, I just had it. It's with like, it's with the how. I don't know how to say it. I had it a second ago.
Look, all I'm saying is just because they're cringy and stupid doesn't mean that they're wrong about everything.
Right, I get it. Like, idiots, a broken clock can be right twice a day. But I just don't believe, like, they try to, like, if you say that, my contention is that when you try to say, well, I oppose socialism, they're like, well, you hate the police. Like, you're opposed to.
Well, no, I don't oppose every socialist aspect. I oppose I oppose ideological socialism. Because the problem with ideological socialism isn't that it produces things from a central command. The problem with the ideological socialism, is that it tries to put everything under that central command. Not everything belongs in the hands of the government. In fact, most things don't. But there are some things that, yeah, you should hand over to the government. Let them take care of it.
And I don't think, like, I just see those as institutions, and so since.
I mean, once they're instituted, what's the difference?
Right, it's just I'm haggling over, or arguing over, rather, the definition of socialism.
I mean, if I create an institution that you don't like, but it's lasted 100 years, is it no longer socialist because you've always had it?
Yes. No. No, it's just.
What if I call the institution that's lasted for 100 years, this is a socialist institution, get over it, bro? Does that no longer get to be a socialist?
To me, it just feels like when I talk to socialists, they believe that socialism is simply people working together. Well, I don't think that's the case.
That's like left libertarian communism.
People can work together under all sorts of different kind of governments,
Well, I mean, even if we're talking like governments, what they're talking about is more like a commune, because that's basically as large because 20 people is about as large as it can get before that falls apart. Or you could there's also co-ops. I mean, those can work too. Like, as if we're talking like from a company perspective, you can make a co-op work where everyone just like contributes and gets an equal share at the end of the day. That can also work. It really depends on what the product is, but yeah, because obviously your financier and the potato farmer, like the financier is going to be a little bit miffed if he's getting paid the same, you know?
Right, but I mean, like, we can move on from this topic too, but to me, when I'm talking to socialists and they're like, are people defending socialism? They're not always socialists, but they try to make it seem like if you oppose socialism, then you oppose people working together or essentially having the government do anything. Like the government doing something equals socialism. I'm like,
That's
I
not
don't.
that's not even a socialist argument. That's like a low-level attempt at emotional manipulation.
Right, like that's my opposition to it, and so I haven't fully thought the idea through very well.
I'm just saying, give it a think,
Clearly.
because like, I'm just saying, give it a think, because like, I've been thinking about that for a while too, because I think a few years ago I probably would have agreed with you, but like, the more I've thought about it, the more I'm just like, I mean, functionally, like realistically speaking, what is the difference? Like, if we're talking from a socialist perspective, there really isn't that much difference from the government mandating a police force or like the FBI compared to the government creating a potato distribution center.
Well, I think the difference to me would be that the government mandating a police force would probably fall under socialism, but like
Well, I mean, what is the
if you have
FBI?
if you have the government, if the government represents the people, the will of the people, then it's the people mandating it, I guess. I don't know. It's not simply like,
I'd like to point out the people's mandate is one of the cornerstones of socialist ideology.
yeah, but it's also one of the cornerstones of Democratic and Republican ideology as well.
I mean, yes, but the entire like the whole concept of how socialism is supposed to work is that it's supposed to be one giant co-op, which is obviously unrealistic, but
Right.
you know, that is the point. That's the end goal is that everyone gets an equal say in how things work. So, and I'd also like to point out if it applies to all of them, it may as well apply to none of them. Because I mean, why are even making a distinction at that point?
Yeah, it's just socialism puts the group ahead of the individual.
True.
So you can sacrifice individual rights as long as it benefits the group.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the precept of taxes in the first place. You pay in a little bit, and you get this whether you actually want it or not. For instance, someone that lives in the woods away from civilization probably has no access to the FBI or the police or any of that, at least not in any sort of reasonable way.
Sounds awesome.
Bitches still paying taxes.
Are they
I
though?
mean, okay, they don't have to, but like if the IRS finds out about it, well, guess what? Now the FBI is showing up in your neighborhood.
Yeah, tyranny. That's what I call it.
I mean, I don't think it's fair to call it tyranny either, but like I'm just saying it does the way this whole thing works does sacrifice a piece of the individual, especially if you think like me and you treat capital and cash itself as the representation of the means of production. Yeah, they're taking some of that and saying we're going to use this however we want, and if you don't like it, you can get banned.
Yeah, but I believe that there's some sort of understood agreement between the state and the individual, because
Uh,
even the guy who lives out in the woods is still entitled to like due process of the law and protection from the army. Like he can live out in the woods safe and sound because the United States government is preventing, I don't know, Mexico or Canada from invading his little farm out in the woods.
I mean, yeah,
So he
but like,
does get some benefit. Like he wants that benefit to just be able to live peacefully on his own, and that benefit, in order to provide that freedom and liberty to him, he has to agree to pay some sort of taxes.
I mean, you're assuming he
And it's
actually
not
wants
like
your
a,
protection.
well, I think he does.
Have you asked?
Well, this is a hypothetical person, but
Well, sure, but like,
I think through
there are
his,
there are people that if you gave them the choice to just say, "Look, I'm not gonna go anywhere. Don't protect me. I don't want the police. I don't want any of that shit, and I'm not paying taxes." There are plenty of people that I think would take that deal. There's a reason it's not offered. I'd like to point. Let me just put that out there. There's a reason that the United States does not offer that option of, look, okay, we're just gonna you completely opt out of society, but you don't have to pay taxes. There's a reason that option doesn't exist.
well, right, like if there were some sort of wilderness area, like that wasn't part of the nation, I guess outside of the nation, and they wanted to go live there and not pay taxes and just be their own person, I'd be fine with that.
There actually are places like that.
Like out of out of in the wilderness, like
I mean,
between
well,
countries, or
they still exist in the United States, but there are places that people like that actually can currently go.
well, yeah, there's places off the grid within the United States, but there's no like you can go out into the wilderness and just set up a farm
No, I
that's
mean there
outside of the
is.
country, though.
It's not outside the country, but there are places you can actually do that. There's a small town in California that's effectively known as like Anarchy Town, um, where police never go. You can stay there as long as you want, as long as you can defend your stead. You you can do whatever you want. Like the police will never bother you. They just don't go there ever. Technically speaking, this is an option that's on the table, and some people do take it. Mostly criminals running from the law, but they take it.
Yeah, it's a complex and probably mostly specious argument or topic, rather, not argument. Well, right, because we live in reality, and this is more like a philosophical thing that we're
Sure.
talking about.
Look, my only initial point was that when you like start boiling it down, you can make qualifying adjustments to things like the police and the treasury and all that, saying that they're necessary, but at the same time, if you're coming from a socialist perspective, so is the potato redistribution center.
Right. So I guess
That's all I'm saying.
necessity is the difference.
Well, I mean,
Is what
necessity
people
is
disagree about.
somewhat subjective too,
Right.
because there's plenty of people that if you gave them the options, like we're going to abolish the police force, what do you think? I know a few people that would be like, fuck yeah.
Well, yeah, they'd be that way until they get murdered or something.
I mean, maybe or maybe not. There are some people that I think actually would enjoy living without police, where they just get to do whatever they want whenever they want.
Well, most people live their lives without police for the most part.
I
Like
mean,
I
sure, but
rarely interact with the police.
yeah, but I'm this type of people that would actively enjoy not having police are probably like that because they want to do things the police would stop them from doing.
Yeah,
Which is a good thing.
typically bad things.
Which is a good thing. But like, I'm just saying, you got to remember that part of the reasons that these things exist aren't because everyone agrees with it. It's because some people. It's because some people don't agree with it. Like police don't exist.
Right.
Police don't exist because everyone's a great person, right?
Well, yeah, it's it also comes down to how do you view people? Is human nature, are people inherently bad or are they inherently good?
Mm,
And I think human nature is inherently bad, but that people can struggle against that nature
I don't think we're necessarily
and
inherently
be
bad.
good
I think
people.
I think humans are inherently fearful. And it's not really the same thing. It's not good or bad. They just have like this default fear of the world around them and have a need to control it. And it's how you choose to approach that determines that, in my opinion.
Well, human nature being bad is like if given I don't know how to describe that. It's
Welcome to the
essentially
philosophy
like
episode every day.
yeah, it's essentially like you can't just trust everybody because that's naive.
Right.
And so you want to be kind of suspicious of other people because they there are people that'll just they want to hurt you or they don't give a shit about hurting you.
Right. More likely you have something they want.
I don't think I think that people how do I say this? I don't know. I don't know. I am losing my thought, I guess.
I'm supposed to be the
And
tired one. Stop it.
I need more coffee.
I need coffee and sleep, so I can't
Okay.
have coffee.
Somebody Uber eats Jordan coffee and
Nobody
breakfast.
Uber eats me coffee and breakfast. I freaking need to sleep.
Oh, decaf then.
Decaf. Oh yeah, that's helpful. Fuck's sake. All right.
It tastes good.
Well, do you want to keep talking about Trump impeachment, or do you want to move on to Greta Thunberg?
Let's move on to that to close out the show because we're
Okay.
almost at the 2 hour mark.
All right. Scary face girl.
Right.
Man,
The mean mug.
that is not a nice picture of her. That's dirty, Newsweek. That is not nice. Let's see. Did President Trump tweet about her? Greta Thunberg shrugged off
Yeah.
President Trump's tweet following her emotional speech about climate change, saying she expected him to make comments about her. Thunberg, the 16-year-old environmental activist who rose to global fame because the world is a strange fucking place and for some reason we care what a 16-year-old thinks. After founding the the school strike for climate campaign.
Progressives care what a 16-year-old thinks because she is the future.
God damn it.
The rest of us are like, come back in about 20 years when you've grown up a bit.
Seriously. No, the worst part is, like, it's the most obvious trap. It's like a fucking high school level trap. Where they're being like, where they put the fucking kid on stage, be like, if you say mean things about her, we're gonna call you out on it. And of course, because like, I really wish the right would just leave Greta Thunberg alone because it's no matter what they do in regards to her, it's going to be treated as an attack. It literally doesn't matter. She doesn't matter. Can we all just shut the fuck up about Greta Thunberg? I'm aware I'm part of the problem right now.
Well, I mean, I've seen some like funny memes and some people make comments about it, but generally speaking, most people on the right just they don't care about her personally, but they care about this like manipulation. Like a lot of them they're worried about her as a child and that she's been manipulated and that this climate change, I guess, apocalyptic view of the world, revelations, level climate change are essentially freaking the kids out so much, putting them in such a hysteria that it's actually damaging these children.
Well, I'll say two things about that. A, we definitely should not be worried about anything that's run by a 16-year-old. It will fall apart, I promise.
Well, she's not running it though. She's just the spokesman.
Even with her as the spokesman, like something's gonna happen and it'll fall the fuck apart, just like it does with everything. David Hogg wasn't running his shit either, and look where it is now. B, if you really want the left to stop using children, you're gonna have to ignore when they use children. Seriously. Like, I know it sounds counterintuitive. I get it. It sounds like the wrong thing to do. But the reason they keep doing it is because it keeps getting reacted to. Because they want the right to, like, make comments. They want them to be like, don't listen to some stupid kid. How could you call her stupid? She's trying to change the world. Ah. Like, we've already, we saw this, like, the same shit happened with Hogg. They keep doing it because it keeps getting the response they want.
Well, I think the response that they're looking for isn't just like the right freaking out about it. I think the response they're looking for is people. Well, yes, there probably is part of that because they're looking for people to criticize her so that they will then go to the left, be like, "Well, I'm defending children." They're there to like prey on.
Well, it's also emotional manipulation because, like, remember
Right.
like the feminist little girls in the princess dresses that were like saying "fucking damn" a lot,
Cussing and shit.
Yeah. They were talking about
bitches.
Yeah, they were talking about like rape culture and shit. It's like, no, like, again, the reason they're doing it is because people react to it. That's why they did that. They specifically chose children because it's offensive and it's annoying and it's going to get people going, why the fuck are you involving kids in this? So it gets them more attention. It's like, it's a desperate viral play. They're doing it, they want the virality. They want the attention that comes from it, and then when they get criticized, they can hide behind the skirt of the child.
Well, I think asking the right to ignore it is asking too much. Expecting too much from people because people are going to react to it, and there's no way you're ever going to get, because with media and social media now, you just need one person to say something and then it's the right has said this, you know?
I know.
And so
asking
it's almost people not to react.
In some weird way, it's almost better that the entire crowd reacts because maybe it washes away the stupid.
Yeah, asking people not to react is like a big ask for sure. And so I think instead of that, like, we need to develop a proper reaction.
Because we need to get conservative kids.
Yeah, let's put these kids on an island and, you know, Lord of the Flies this shit.
All right, so we're going to get David Hogg, the little feminist girls, Greta Thunberg, the Covington kids. We're going to get all these kids on an island.
My money's on the Covington kids. Well, yeah, and then there's that too, where the left will go after kids if they're smirking while wearing a MAGA hat. Like,
yeah.
And I get it. Like, we all think that's stupid, and we're all opposed to that. And so I agree with you. Like, I don't want to go after Greta Thunberg for this, but at the same time, like, she's speaking at the UN. So she is addressing and, I guess, attempting to influence our institutions in some way. And so not reacting to it is essentially
okay, this
is essentially saying, go ahead and do this.
This is one of the few times where, like, I'll go ahead and be like, can we just have a law for this? No using kids for political purposes.
Kids should be seen, not heard.
You know what? Yeah, kinda. Fucking yeah, kinda. Like, if that means that if they're not going to be fucking manipulated for, like, use in shit like this. Because I'm sorry, like, because don't get me wrong, I actually don't hate Greta. Like, some of the points she made, I actually thought were pretty spot on. And the fact that she's up there upset that her, like, dreams and childhood were stolen from her, like, yeah, she's kind of right. It wasn't by her opponents, though.
Yeah, it's not climate change doing it. It's not Donald Trump doing it.
That's her
It's your
parents.
parents
That's
slutting you out.
Yeah, it's literally nobody else but her parents. Like we can blame we can point the finger all these other places, but at the end of the day, it's her parents that have put her in this position.
Right. I just think
they allowed this, all of this. Sorry.
I just think it's disingenuous. For them, like she's six. Like I'm trying to think, what was I like as a 16-year-old?
I was fucking stupid.
Playing video games, right? Like
mm-hmm.
angry at everything.
Oh yeah, the world was so unfair.
Not for any particular reason, but
it's called being 16.
Right, you're trying to figure out who you are, and so part of that is rebelling against the I guess the institutions around you to like kind of like push on them to see, okay, what's good and what's bad.
If Greta could like rebel against her parents right about now, that'd be amazing.
Right, like let's have her switch and just vote Trump.
Fucking, she just comes out. She comes out on the stage one day. She's got a fucking like a mohawk with like somehow fit a MAGA hat around it.
Well,
like a giant purple mohawk. You know what? Fuck the environment. I'm going fucking punk. See you on the outside of meat space, bitches. Cyberpunk forever.
To me, like this whole like the Covington kids didn't really do anything. They weren't. I mean, they were at like a pro-life rally, and so they were being political essentially, but the rally was over and they were waiting for their buses when. And I mean, they were wearing MAGA hats, so they were being political, but they weren't like addressing the UN. They weren't giving speeches in front of a large crowd. They were waiting around when some guys started yelling at them, and then some Indian guy with a drum came up to them, and they, reacted like teenagers. Shocking.
Yeah, I know.
A group of teen dudes.
A group of teenage boys don't know what to do when some random fucking crazy black people start yelling at them, and then some guy with a drum just starts fucking drumming in their face. Dude, I'm an adult and I wouldn't know what the fuck to do.
I'd probably do the same thing they did. Stand there and smirk.
I'd probably, like, in that situation, I'd probably just leave because, like, at that point, it's just getting weird. Like, dude, what the hell is this?
Well, they were waiting for their buses.
So I mean, okay, yeah, sure, but like,
go anywhere. But
I mean, yes, you're right. In their situation, I don't know what else they could have done.
Walk away, but
you're right. I don't think they could have done anything else. But I'm saying, if it was me, I'd probably just leave.
Right, as an individual, you can just do that. But like, they weren't doing anything but like the Greta Thunberg and David Hogg. They are up in front of these crowds, giving speeches. They're in front of the UN, talking to, I don't know what the fuck they are, the UN Nazi Assembly, whatever, fucking whatever it is. The socialists at the UN.
Goddamn UN socialists and their police.
Yeah, God, what, they want to build roads all the time. Fucking oppress me with their damn roads.
Goddamn socialist borders.
Then the capitalists want to come along and toll the roads. Fucking, I hate toll roads.
That's so what you're saying is you like my socialist roads.
I love socialist roads. They're the best.
Thanks.
Freeways.
You're welcome.
Dude, Texas has way more toll roads. At least the part of Texas I was in. There were a bunch of toll roads everywhere.
It's because we love capitalism here.
That's right. Anyway, they're up addressing these like political bodies, and they're supposed to be representative of these children and the future and the people and what the people want. Like, that's my big contention, is that they're supposed to be, they're claiming that they're speaking on behalf of the world, when God damn it, I did not elect a fucking 16-year-old girl from Sweden with, what does she have, autism to represent me? I did not.
Dude,
Sorry.
apparently she has
Not my pick.
well, apparently she has like a whole host of like issues, but none of that even really matters. And honestly, it's kind of funny because I remember one time she was talking about people criticizing her for having autism or Asperger's specifically, I think.
Yeah, I think she has Asperger's.
Which is the funniest named mental illness out of all of them. And I get to say that because people thought I had Asperger's when I was a kid. So I get to call it Asperger's all I want.
Jordan has Asperger's.
I have the Asperger's. I don't have the Asperger's, but people thought I did when I was a kid. So
you had a mild case, but then you got over it.
No, honestly, I think it had more to do with the Adderall I was taking when I was a kid.
Oh wow, what was that like?
That's an interesting question. Just because like it's like I think the reason that they thought that I was autistic is because like the way Adderall hits you, it's like you're able to focus super, super hard, but you don't give a shit like about anything.
Crazy.
Like you're kind of a robot, which for if you're trying to be productive is incredibly useful. But
right.
If you're trying to like be a human, it's not. So
yeah,
like that was the main issue. That's really what it was. So yeah, don't worry, Greta. I'm right there with you and your Asperger's.
Anyway, back to Asperger's.
God, I can't take that fucking disease's name seriously. Why did they call it? Is it someone's name? Is that what that is?
Disorder.
Why is it called that? Anyway, no, I was just saying like it was kind of funny because she was talking about that and people were criticizing her for being up there despite being like I won't call her mentally ill. I think Michael Knowles was probably wrong to frame it like that, but having that condition. And she was saying, that's not even an argument. It's like, yeah, but neither is saying that they don't have an argument. Like neither of you are making an argument right now. We're just talking about you having Asperger's.
Right.
Like no arguments are being made on either side. Could we get back to the actual thing?
It's just one person pointing out a characteristic of the other person and then them saying, well,
that's not even an argument.
That's not even an argument.
Like, who fucking cares? Everyone watching knows that's not an argument. If you just ignore it, it's fine.
Yeah.
No, but I actually did like some of the points that Greta was making.
I didn't really watch her that closely because I'm trying to implement your don't give a shit.
Like, don't get me wrong, I don't hate Greta as like a spokesperson. I mean, if she keeps doing it, I think she'd probably actually be okay. It's just like the level of fucking like fear her parents have whipped up into this child. It's just disturbing.
And anger.
Yeah, but honestly,
like,
mostly fear because like none of that anger looks like it's like legitimate anger. It just looks like she's scared.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest frustrations with this whole thing is like she's afraid and angry. And it's like, instead of, I mean, I fully believe you should coddle your children, like, because you should teach them how to deal with these things on their own.
Okay, terrifying them is also the wrong way to go.
Right. Well, no, you want to slowly introduce them to difficult situations so that they can establish their ability to deal with the difficulties of the world, because I'm going to die at some point and my child needs to be able to live as an independent individual. They need to fully realize themselves before that happens.
I'm just sort of amusing myself with the thought of like them waking up Thunberg every single morning with a big old bowl of Terror Rose where they just have like this giant screen on the wall. It's like, you're going to die in 12 years. Here's the death clock to when the world ends. It's going to be a giant typhoon and hurricanes and magma spouts coming out of the ground.
environmental collapse. There's an extinction. Like, just that whole speech was just.
They just have like fucking an inconvenient truth on repeat in the house.
Well, recently, what's been going around now is videos that splice together what the climate activists and scientists were saying in the late 1970s and what they were saying now. And in the 1970s, it was, we're entering a new ice age. The world is we're gonna freeze over, right? That's what the fear was.
I mean, sure, but I think it's
the
also
ice caps were expanding, and they were talking about ways of how to melt them down to prevent that from happening. And then now it's, well, they're all melting, and in X amount of time, we're all going to be underwater.
I mean, yes, but it is also worth remembering that, like, back then, we should probably be taking these things in the context of probably closer to the past 20 years. Not because we need to ignore what happened before that, but more because the computational power has changed significantly. And I don't think the scientists were like lying to us back then. I think that they were giving us the best information they had, but they also didn't have the same equipment we have now. They didn't have the same knowledge base we have now.
Yeah, but I don't think they were stupid.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that they just got it wrong. Like, I think they got it wrong. I think that they were giving us the information that they had, and based on their information they had, they thought that there was an ice age coming. Okay. They had it wrong. And moving on, like, yes, okay, they had it wrong. It's worth remembering that their predictions have been faulty at best so far. That is worth remembering. But it's a very like what they're trying to calculate is also incredibly complex. So computational power in this particular respect, in my opinion, is very relevant. The ability for these models to actually produce any sort of predictions, because it's only been like, I mean, even like in the early 2000s, people were complaining that the meteorologists could never get the fucking weather right. It's only been in what, the past 5-10 years that you turn on the Weather Channel and you're pretty sure that the weatherman has it right. You know, like you're pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just see that as like a guide as opposed to like a definitive statement of weather.
Well, I mean, yes, and it is also. And before I get this bullshit, yes, I know the difference between weather and climate. But if you're able to consistently predict the weather, that would allow you to also form a climate model for where you're expecting things to go. Just saying.
Sort of.
Well, it would be if you're able to consistently do it every single time over the course of like a decade, you've got a pretty good model at that point of what's happening and therefore what will happen.
Well, I think the biggest problem that the climate, because like, okay, so I'm a big fan of Aristotle.
Okay.
There's a mean here that's probably accurate or closest to the truth that we're going to get.
I would view Aristotle's meteorological wisdom as suspect, but continue.
Well, I'm referring to his philosophical concept of the golden mean, but
okay,
because there's the climate change apocalypticists. I'm trying to come up with a good word for them. That's not it. But the people who essentially read Revelations into like the biblical,
the apocryphal climatologists.
Yeah, something like that. There's an apocalypse coming and it's in 10 years or it's at a certain time. I see that as like the religious people who are like, in 15 years, the world's going to end, so give me money and I'll save you. Something like that. I see it as the same thing. And I think that is hurting the case of like the legitimate climate scientists who want to legitimately address this issue, because them making this prediction that Washington D.C. will be underwater in 10 years, and then it doesn't happen, just additionally discredits the whole idea.
Sure.
Like
I agree
publicly
with
speaking.
that.
So I think they're doing a disservice by making these predictions and then making them out. And to be fair, that's politicians gonna politician, because that's how they fundraise, by scaring the shit out of you and saying, I can save you
Yeah.
if you just give me money. So I think I think that is probably doing the most damage to the whole climate change debate.
Oh no, the injection of politics has been incredibly destructive. Like even like the climate change. Sorry, not the climate. What am I talking about? The climatologists that we currently have are even looking at AOC and being like, "Dude, 12 years is not the timeline. I don't know where you got that. I don't know what you're talking about, but like that ain't it. So shut up."
And it's also that I'm just having a bad brain day, I guess. It's also that they try to make it sound like, I know, I kind of like my brain, but
yeah,
I was up too late. I stayed up till like 11 last night.
funny story.
Getting old, man. No, I just think that they make it sound like it's going to be like everything will be fine, but because we're not doing something about climate change on some random Tuesday, Washington, D.C. is going to have like a massive flood and everyone's going to die. And if you don't want to do anything about it, you're a bad person. And it's like, well, no, if the sea levels rise and everything, like you might see more floods and you might see more natural disasters, but it's going to be a gradual thing.
Yeah.
Not going to be day after tomorrow, fucking tidal wave comes and washes away New York City, which might not be so bad.
No, I disavow.
No, don't disavow. Come on. Deep down in your heart, you secretly.
Weren't you just saying that you didn't agree with yourself like just 2 seconds ago?
Yeah, I don't really want to wash away New York because there are some good people in New York. Probably most people in New York. But anyway.
Do you assume some are good people?
Well, I use that like Sodom and Gomorrah story where Abraham or whoever it is like
Abraham Lincoln?
Well, if I can find one good person in the city, will you not destroy it? And God's like, yeah, sure. But he can't.
Thank God for Honest Abe, and Sodom and Gomorrah was saved.
Yeah, right.
That's how the story goes, right? Abraham Lincoln saves the day.
Abraham Lincoln, yep. The first Republican president. Just in case people didn't know that. Because there was actually a parade in Oregon where the Democratic Party had a float or like a group in the parade, and one of them was dressed as Lincoln, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, yeah, like he's an American president, but he was also the first Republican president. But I don't know that the kids these days know that.
They probably just assume he was a Democrat.
Well, yeah, that's the problem with the whole like everything good is Democrat or everything good is socialist sort of perspective, or everything that is good is capitalist.
Yeah.
Because no. That's why I'm a big fan of Aristotle. It's taking the middle ground on. There's a middle ground. There's two extremes, and then there's the middle ground, and the middle ground is where you want to be, but the middle ground shifts around, kind of. So sometimes you need to be more one way than the other, and sometimes you need to be more depending on how things are.
Yeah, that's the way I look at both sides.
That's my general philosophy.
And that's why I'm gonna read everything that Greta Thunberg does to make sure I'm a balanced individual.
Gonna read it all, and when you find that one racist tweet she had 4 years ago, you're gonna publish it.
Oh shit! Time to get Greta Thunberg canceled.
Yeah, all that is bullshit.
Dude, cancel culture blows my mind sometimes because I'm just like, dude, there's some people that I can't understand how they're not canceled. And then, like, you get some other dude over here that gets canceled. It's like he ate a ham sandwich while looking at a woman funny.
You can get canceled for that?
Probably.
Oh shit. Oh, I'm sure there's things that I've done that would totally get me canceled, but
I mean, who hasn't done something
say,
that would get them
so.
canceled? Seriously.
I just don't know if it's recorded online somewhere.
None of mine is, so fuck you bitches, you can't cancel me.
I'm sure I have some stuff on there somewhere.
Unless they find my internet history. Oh no.
Right. Oh, I don't know.
If they ever see my Pornhub searches, I'm definitely canceled.
They just find like videos of you playing Grand Theft Auto or something.
I'm
like
literally
that.
watching like a fucking Grand Theft Auto stream on Pornhub. No, I'm looking at porn.
He thinks it's okay to like sleep with hookers and then kill them for the money.
No. Okay, now we're literally talking about nothing.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to end it.
It is.
Fuck socialists. Fuck Nazis.
Except roads. Roads are great.
Social programs are fine
Woo,
as long as
roads.
they're backed up by the free market.
Woo.
So yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Sorry about the rambly ending here, but I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe because people need they need us for some balance in the country.
They need our need.
Well, I think our show provides like a semi-decent balance and then a lot of just kind of humor and sort of non-threatening. We're not catastrophizing anything, so that's what this country needs is less catastrophizing.
You heard it here first. You need
share it here to save America.
One share equals one America.
Yes.
That's right.